The Dirty Bunch Jeep Club is based out of Central Florida. We primarily off-road in Florida, but over the last 2 years, we've driven our Jeeps in 9 different states, and we plan to add several more to that list in the next few months. We'd love it if you would join us on one of our upcoming rides. You can find us on Facebook, and there, on our events tab, you can see all of our upcoming rides. Check back often, find one that works for you, and then come ride with us.
Hi, I'm Brian. This is Ash the Adventure Dog.
Hi, I'm Nori.
Hi, I'm Tiffany, and this is Diesel.
And I'm David. And the Dirty Bunch Jeep Club is back on the trail.
So come ride with us.
We're here at the Georgia-Florida state line. This is where the Florida Adventure Trail and the Georgia Adventure Trail come together. The Dirty Bunch Jeep Club has spent the last few months exploring the Florida Adventure Trail, and today, a small scouting team will get our first look at the Georgia Adventure Trail. The plan is to get an advanced look at the GAT, and then, in the future, come back with a larger group of the Dirty Bunchers and really spend some time exploring this amazing trail. Now, before we begin, we'd like to send a big, huge thank you out to VMan1313 for putting this trail together. Please check out his website, VMan1313 Adventures, for more details on the GAT. For now, from this point, we'll begin the 580-mile trek heading north that is the Georgia Adventure Trail. The Georgia Adventure Trail, or GAT as it is commonly called, is more than 580 miles of backroad and off-road trails spanning from the southern border with Florida to the northern border with North Carolina. In this video, we'll travel the entire length of the GAT from south to north, and we'll give you a really good look at the types of roads you can expect, the types of campsites you can find along the way, and we'll help you get a good estimate as to how long it would take you to complete the Georgia Adventure Trail. Now, what we have found is that a lot of folks are making the drive to the start of the GAT and looking for a place to stay so that they can start the trail first thing in the morning. So let's start out with accommodations in the immediate area. The closest town to the start on the Florida side of the border is Jennings. It's only a few miles from the start. On the Georgia side, Lake Park is the closest and is roughly 7 miles away. If you're going to stay the night in this area, most people look to do one of 3 things. First, they look for dispersed camping. This is free camping with no amenities. Second, they'll look for campground camping. This offers amenities, but at a price. And finally, some will look to stay in a hotel. So let's take a quick look at these 3 options. First up, dispersed camping. Now, our knowledge of dispersed campsites in this area is limited to the waypoints that appear on the trail maps for the Georgia Adventure Trail and the Florida Adventure Trail. As we've traveled these trails, we've done our best to add waypoints. However, we've yet been able to add any dispersed camping sites near the start of the GAT. So that means that the closest known dispersed campsite we know of on the Florida side of the border is roughly 52 miles away. On the Georgia side of the border, the closest campsite is roughly 93 miles from the start, and that took us more than 5 hours of driving to reach. For that reason, we are not currently listing dispersed camping as a viable option for those who are looking to sleep near the start of the GAT. Second up is campground camping. There are 3 campgrounds in the immediate area of the start of the GAT. The problem with these 3 closest campgrounds is that they are all literally on the side of I-75. We stayed at the Jennings KOA and slept roughly 100 yards from the interstate and under a huge billboard that filled our campsite with light. It was loud and very bright, and it honestly made it really tough to sleep. So in our opinion, if you're sleeping in a tent, the campground camping near the start of the Georgia Adventure Trail is not ideal. And option number 3, hotels. If you would prefer a hotel, there are half a dozen in the immediate area. On the Florida side of the border in Jennings, you'll find the Blue Springs Inn. This is a small local motel with very reasonable prices. It is also the closest hotel to the start of the GAT, being only 3.7 miles away. 10 miles north of Jennings in Lake Park, Georgia, you'll find 5 chain hotels to choose from. These are all clustered near the highway, along with food and fuel options. After a restless night's sleep, we were ready to get started. Our exploration of the Georgia Adventure Trail began as we crossed the border from Florida to Georgia. It was an overcast and breezy winter day in the low 50s with high humidity. We immediately began looking for dispersed camping sites that we could add to the map, but we soon saw that this was just not going to happen.
After jumping on this trail right now, I definitely think we made a good choice on that KOA because unless we were going to pull over on the side of the road here and somebody's holding on, I think that would have been a no-go to camp anywhere around here.
Now, some say that the GAT can be easily divided into 3 parts, the lower, middle, and upper sections. And we found this to be relatively accurate. The first section, the lower section, is primarily flat with very little elevation changes. The roads are mostly backcountry roads and dirt or gravel side roads. We found it to be a nice introduction to the trail.
Ash, come here.
The Dirty Bunch Jeep Club does not typically bring our pets along on our expeditions, but this time we made the decision to do so. Brian and Nori brought their 10-month-old American Bulldog, Ash. Tiffany and I brought our youngest son's 10-week-old German Shepherd, Diesel. At the time of this trip, we'd only had Diesel for a week before this ride. For both dogs, this would be their first Jeepin' adventure. Day one of the Georgia Adventure Trail does a good job of keeping you out of populated areas. Looking to the map, you'll see that the trail often comes close to towns and cities, but it rarely intersects with them. We only drove through 2 towns on this day. The first one is the town of Lakeland, and it's less than 40 miles from the start of the GAT. It's a great place to get some gas and food, and if you're lucky, like we were, you'll come through town when the farmer's market is open. If you do, be sure to try the boiled peanuts. This particular expedition is a scouting mission for the Dirty Bunch Jeep Club. We typically bring 6 to 12 Jeeps when we hit the road, but this time we had a lot of questions about the trail and felt like it would be beneficial to send a scouting team of just 2 Jeeps to check things out and make plans that our larger group could take advantage of at a later date. Now, this is not our first adventure in Georgia. In October of 2022, we brought half a dozen Jeeps and explored the east half of the Georgia Traverse. In June of 2022, we drove through much of Georgia as part of a 10-day expedition that spanned 6 states and covered more than 1,800 miles. During that trip, which we referred to as our epic Jeepin' adventure, we earned Georgia's only Jeep Badge of Honor, Beasley Knob. In the description of this video, you can find links to the videos that we created for those 2 adventures. And you can find dozens of other videos of our young and growing YouTube channel at Dirty Bunch Jeep Club. The channel has only been around for about 9 months, and we hope that you will help us grow it by sharing this video with others. And please check back often because we expect to publish more than a dozen new videos over the next 45 days about our adventures on the Georgia Adventure Trail, the Florida Adventure Trail, and the Georgia Traverse. As we do that, the description for this video will be updated to include links to those new videos. More than 5 hours into our ride, we found the first true dispersed campsite. This area was large enough for groups, and we wanted to give you a quick look at it. Now, we saw a waypoint on the map for another dispersed campsite before this one, but we could not locate it when we got there. Hopefully, you and others will help expand the waypoints of this map so that additional camping can be located and added. But for now, we were 93 miles from the state line before we found dispersed camping. Fortunately, once you reach this point, camping becomes less and less of an issue. And we'll talk much more about that as we move north. For now, we were still 85 miles south of the place that we would camp tonight, so we needed to get moving. It was well after dark when we finally reached our campsite for the night. This location had at least a dozen open dispersed campsites available, and it is huge because when you're traveling to a dispersed campsite, you rarely know whether or not there will be anything available that works for you. Dispersed camping can be a bit of a dice roll. If you've not been to that site before, then you may have no idea as to whether or not it's going to work for you when you get there. And you never know whether you're going to get there just to find somebody else is already in that spot. We'll have much more to say about dispersed camping on the Georgia Adventure Trail in the next video. For now, we can say that this particular campsite is not a single site, but at least a dozen. The night that we arrived, there was a single camper taking one of the sites at the very front. So we moved several sites down and set up camp where we would not bother him. We got our dinner cooked up, and then we spent some time sitting around the fire. The star-filled sky was only interrupted by the massive amount of smoke that the fire was producing. We didn't know it at the time, but this smoke was a sign of things to come. For tonight, we talked and laughed and looked back at our first day exploring the Ghat, and we looked forward to the trail that lay ahead. We had covered 178 miles, the most miles we would cover in any given day, but we still had more than 400 miles to go. The Georgia Adventure Trail still had much to show us. In our next episode, we will experience our first real hardship on the trail, and we'll have to put our problem-solving skills to work. So please join us as we continue our exploration of the Georgia Adventure Trail.